The shuttle bay doors hissed open, and Tae-Yang Kim stepped onto Velcor Station with his worn duffel bag slung over one shoulder. The air tasted metallic and cold, nothing like the warm earth and animal smells of the wildlife center back home. 6 months ago, humanity had joined the Galactic Union. 3 weeks ago, they'd chosen him for the veterinary exchange program. Now he was here, the only human on a station dedicated to preserving the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. The receiving area stretched out before him, all smooth metal and glowing panels. A group of aliens waited near the far wall. Tae-Yang recognized them from the briefing files. Kelzari, insectoid beings with forearms and clicking mandibles. The one in front wore an official uniform with the Biological Preservation Council symbol. "You are the human," the Kelzari said. Not a question. Its translator rendered the words in flat, uninterested tones. "Tae-Yang Kim," he said, extending his hand. "Earth habit." The Kelzari stared at his hand like he'd offered it a dead fish. Tae-Yang lowered his arm. "I'm ready to start work. I am Director Voth, follow me." The director turned and walked away without waiting. The other Kelzari followed, leaving Tae-Yang to hurry after them with his bag bouncing against his hip. The station's interior was massive. They passed through corridors lined with observation windows that looked into alien habitats. Tae-Yang glimpsed creatures he'd only seen in video files. A Kolvar the size of a small truck, its shaggy fur matted with dirt as it dug in artificial soil. Something that looked like a crystalline spider spinning webs of pure light. A serpent with too many heads coiled around a heating rock. "These are the standard exhibits," Voth said without slowing down. "You will not work with them. Your duties are administrative. The word hit like cold water. I'm a veterinarian. I worked with grizzly bears, big cats, venomous reptiles. You thought incorrectly." Voth stopped at a junction and turned to face him. The director's compound eyes reflected Tae-Yang's image a dozen times over. "Humans are newcomers. You have been in space for less than one standard cycle. Our preservation protocols were established over 3,000 cycles. You will observe. You will learn. You will not touch the specimens." Tae-Yang kept his face neutral, the way he'd learned to do when a panicked animal bared its teeth. Show fear and you'd get hurt. Show anger and you'd make things worse. Understood. They assigned him a small quarters and a workstation in the records department. His supervisor was a Sorvath named Rinmok, a reptilian alien with scales that shifted from green to blue depending on the light. Rinmok gave him a datapad loaded with files and pointed to a chair. "Start with supply inventory," Rinmok said. "When you finish, there is habitat maintenance scheduling. Then feeding records for the past season, all very simple work." Tae-Yang looked at the pad. Months of data entry. This wasn't what he'd trained for. It wasn't what Earth had sent him here to do. But arguing wouldn't help. Not yet. He worked through the day in silence. Around him, the real scientists moved with purpose, discussing cases and reviewing scans of alien biology. They spoke in terms he understood, nervous systems, metabolic rates, behavioral patterns, but they spoke as if he wasn't there. A junior researcher named Yara, a Thrin with smooth aquatic skin, glanced at him once and quickly looked away when their eyes met. That evening, Tae-Yang returned to his quarters and opened a comm channel. His sister's face appeared on the screen, her expression brightening when she saw him. "Tae-Yang, how's the station? Have you worked with anything amazing yet?" Hana was 2 years younger, stationed on a human cargo ship that ran routes near the outer colonies. She'd been the one who encouraged him to apply for the exchange program in the first place. He tried to smile. "Not exactly. They've got me doing data entry." "Data entry? You're a vet. They don't trust me with the animals yet." Director Voth made it clear humans are too new to handle anything important. Hana frowned. "That's garbage. You've worked with some of the most dangerous animals on Earth. They don't care about Earth credentials. We're primitives to them, Hana. Newcomers who barely understand space travel." "Then prove them wrong." She leaned closer to the screen. "You didn't spend 10 years working with animals that could kill you just to file reports. Show them what you can do." After she disconnected, Tae-Yang sat in the dim light of his quarters and thought about her words. Show them, but how? They wouldn't let him near the animals. The next day, during his lunch break, he walked the observation corridors. The habitats were impressive, each one carefully designed to mimic the creature's native environment. He stopped at the Kolvar enclosure. The massive herbivore was pacing, its gait uneven. Taeyang watched it carefully. The animal favored its right front leg, and when it turned, he caught sight of the joint. Swollen. The fur around it looked matted and damp. Infection. He checked the medical logs on a nearby terminal. Nothing. According to the records, the Kolvar was in perfect health. Interesting specimen, yes? Rinmok appeared beside him, startling Taeyang. The Sorvath gestured at the Kolvar with one clawed hand. That one is entering seasonal shedding. The behavior is normal. Its leg is infected, Taeyang said quietly. Rinmok's scales flashed orange, a sign of annoyance Taeyang had learned to recognize. I am a senior xenobiologist. I have studied these creatures for 40 cycles. That is normal shedding. Taeyang looked at the Kolvar again. It was trying to lick the joint, another clear sign of pain or irritation, but he just nodded. My mistake. That night he couldn't stop thinking about the animal. An infection like that would worsen. If left untreated, it could spread. The Kolvar might lose the leg or worse. He pulled up everything he could find about the species, cross-referencing with similar Earth animals. The physiology was different, but infections followed similar patterns everywhere. At 0300 station time, when the corridors were empty, Taeyang made his way back to the Kolvar habitat. He'd gathered basic medical supplies from the station's general inventory. Nothing that would trigger alerts. The access panel accepted his credentials. They'd given him basic clearance for cleaning duties, never expecting he'd use it for this. Inside the habitat, the Kolvar lifted its massive head. Taeyang moved slowly, keeping his body language calm and non-threatening. He'd done this hundreds of times with Earth animals. The principle was the same: respect, patience, and confidence. The Kolvar watched him approach. Taeyang knelt a few meters away and waited. Minutes passed. Finally, the creature huffed and lowered its head, deciding he wasn't a threat. Taeyang edged closer. The infection was worse up close, the joint hot and swollen. He applied antiseptic carefully, working by touch and instinct. The Kolvar rumbled but didn't move. He wrapped the joint in a bandage soaked with antibacterial solution and backed away. The whole process took 20 minutes. He just sealed the habitat. When lights flooded the corridor. What are you doing? Yara stood at the junction, her large eyes wide with shock. Taeyang's heart hammered. The Kolvar had an infection. I treated it. You cannot. Director Voth will. Yara's translator stumbled over her rapid speech. She turned and walked away quickly, her aquatic gait unsteady with panic. Taeyang returned to his quarters and waited. The summons came an hour later. Director Voth's office was cold and bright. Rinmok stood to one side, scales dark with displeasure. Voth's mandibles clicked rapidly. Unauthorized intervention, violation of protocol, contamination risk. You were told explicitly not to touch the specimens. The Kolvar had an infection, Taeyang said calmly. I treated it. In 3 days you'll see improvement. You are not qualified to make such determinations. You are human with no experience in xenobiology. This is your only warning. Break protocol again and you will be sent back to Earth in disgrace. Taeyang left the office with his jaw clenched. He'd saved that animal, but all they saw was a human who didn't follow orders. 3 days later, the Kolvar was walking normally. No one mentioned it. 2 weeks later, at 0400 station time, emergency alarm shattered the silence. Taeyang jerked awake, his quarters flashing red. His comm panel showed a station-wide alert. Maximum security containment breach warning. All personnel report to emergency stations. He dressed quickly and ran for the command center. The corridors were chaos, aliens rushing in every direction. He followed the crowd to the observation deck. Through the massive viewport, he could see into the maximum security biocontainment sector. Inside the largest reinforced habitat, something huge was moving. What is that? Taeyang asked the nearest person, a junior technician. The Vorthrax, the technician whispered, their voice shaking. Sovereign, the deadliest creature in the facility. It's going to break out. Taeyang pressed closer to the viewport and saw it clearly for the first time. 12 feet tall, 6 limbs, armored hide covered in spines glowing with angry red bioluminescence. The creature slammed into the wall of its enclosure and the entire station shuddered. Director Voth's voice came over the speakers. All senior staff to observation immediately. We have 2 hours before containment fails. Taeyang watched the massive predator attack its cage over and over, each impact sending vibrations through the deck plates. 2 hours before the deadliest creature in known space broke free, and everyone in the room looked terrified. The observation room filled with senior staff. Taeyang stayed near the back, trying to remain invisible. Nobody had told him to come here, but nobody had told him to leave either. Through the reinforced viewport, Sovereign continued its assault on the containment walls, each impact making the lights flicker. Director Voth stood at the center console, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Vorthrax from every angle. The creature's vital signs scrolled past in alien script that Taeyang's translator converted automatically. Heart rate elevated, body temperature high. Threat display at maximum. Status report, Voth demanded. Rinmok manipulated the controls, pulling up more data. Sovereign has not eaten in 5 cycles. Core temperature is 3 degrees above normal. Aggressive displays began 2 cycles ago, but have escalated in the past hour. The containment field is at 72% integrity. Sedation? Another scientist asked. A spindly creature Taeyang didn't recognize. Ineffective, Rinmok said, scales shifting to a worried yellow. Previous attempts on Vorthrax specimens failed due to their redundant nervous systems and rapid metabolism. Standard sedatives are processed too quickly. By the time we achieve saturation, the creature would have torn through the doors. Taeyang studied Sovereign through the viewport. The creature was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Its 6 limbs ended in claws that scored deep gouges in the reinforced walls. The armored hide looked thick enough to stop most weapons. Bioluminescent patterns across its body pulsed angry red, casting shadows across its enclosure. But something about the way it moved caught his attention. It kept attacking the same section of wall, the left side of its habitat. Not random aggression, focused, deliberate. We need options, Voth said. This specimen is one of only 3 Vorthrax in captivity. It cannot be replaced. Then we must consider containment failure protocols, a new voice said. Taeyang turned to see a massive armored alien, clearly military. If the creature breaches, we evacuate this section and seal the blast doors. Better to lose the wing than the entire station. That gives us 2 hours, Voth said. Are there any other alternatives? Silence filled the room. On the screen, Sovereign's temperature readings climbed higher. There is one option. Rinmok's voice carried a weight that made everyone turn. Atmospheric termination. We flood the chamber with a gas mixture that will shut down all biological functions. It is painless and guaranteed effective. You mean kill it? Yara said from her station. Her voice was small. Yes. Rinmok met her gaze without flinching. We kill it. But we preserve the genetic material and tissue samples. The specimen's value to science continues. Voth's mandibles clicked slowly, a sign of deep thought. How long to implement? 30 minutes to prepare the system. 5 minutes for the termination itself. Then we have 90 minutes to find another solution. If none exists, we proceed with atmospheric termination. Voth looked around the room. Ideas? More silence. The scientists looked at each other, at their displays anywhere but at the massive creature destroying its prison. Taeyang stepped forward before he could stop himself. It's in pain. Every head turned toward him. Voth's compound eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. Explain, the director said coldly. Sovereign isn't aggressive. It's hurting. Look at how it moves. Taeyang approached the viewport, pointing at the creature. It favors its left side. Every impact is concentrated on that same wall section. And the bioluminescence, that's not a threat display. You presume to understand Vorthrax biology. Rinmok's scales flushed deep orange. I have studied apex predators for 40 cycles. That is textbook threat coloration. On Earth, we have similar patterns in animals under stress. Bright colors as warnings, yes, but also during illness or injury. The pattern is wrong for pure aggression. Taeyang kept his voice level. And look at its breathing. Shallow on the left side. It's protecting something. Ridiculous, another scientist said. The human has been here mere weeks and thinks he understands xenobiology better than we do. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Even Yara looked away, though Taeyang thought he saw doubt in her expression. The scans show no abnormalities, Voth said. Your theory, while creative, is incorrect. We proceed with, You're going to kill it anyway, Taeyang interrupted. The room went silent. Interrupting the director was probably a career-ending move, but he'd already been reprimanded once. What was one more? If you're going to kill Sovereign, what does it hurt to let me observe it for an hour? If I'm wrong, you lose nothing. If I'm right, you save the specimen. Absolutely not, Rinmok said. It is too dangerous to— He found the Kolvar infection, Yara said quietly. Every eye turned to her. She ducked her head but continued speaking. When we said it was seasonal shedding, he was right. We were wrong. That was one case, Rinmok protested. An infection we missed, Yara countered, gaining confidence. And he treated it successfully using basic supplies. Maybe he sees something we don't. The military officer leaned forward. The containment integrity is declining. If the human's theory has any merit, we should investigate. We lose nothing by looking. Voth was silent for a long moment. Sovereign crashed into the wall again, and the lights dimmed briefly. The containment field dropped to 68%. 30 minutes, Voth said finally. You may observe from the corridor. You do not enter the chamber. You do not touch any controls. At the end of 30 minutes, if you have found nothing, we proceed with termination. I'll need access to the medical scans, Taeyang said. Absolutely not, Rinmok started. Give him access, Voth said. 30 minutes, not 1 second more. The observation corridor was a narrow passage that ran alongside Sovereign's habitat, separated by energy barriers and reinforced crystal viewports. Taeyang pressed close to the transparent wall, watching the Vorthrax from mere meters away. This close, the creature was even more impressive. Each spine on its hide was as long as his forearm. The claws left grooves in metal that should have been indestructible. When Sovereign roared, the sound traveled through the viewport and rattled his teeth, but Taeyang forced himself to look past the obvious danger. He'd spent years working with Earth's apex predators. Bears that could crush his skull with one paw, tigers that could kill him in seconds. The key was always the same. Watch, understand, respect. Sovereign turned, and Taeyang saw its full left side. The creature's movements were slightly off balance. When it breathed, its chest expanded unevenly, and there, the way it held its third limb tucked close to its body. Something was wrong on the left side. Yara, he said into his comm, pull up the medical scans. Full body, highest resolution you have. Sending them now. The data appeared on a portable display. Taeyang scrolled through images of Sovereign's anatomy. Skeletal structure, musculature, organ placement. Everything looked normal. He went deeper, focusing on the left side where the creature kept striking the wall. Then he saw it. A small object, maybe 3 centimeters long, lodged between 2 ribs. Metallic composition. The surrounding tissue showed inflammation. There. He zoomed in on the image. Foreign object, left thoracic cavity. Looks like a piece of broken equipment. Rinmok's voice came through the comm. That scan is from 2 months ago. That fragment is from a maintenance error during habitat renovation. It was determined to be non-threatening. It's migrated. Taeyang compared the old scan with Sovereign's current position, tracking the angle. It's pressing against a nerve cluster now. That's why the creature is in agony. Every movement drives that piece deeper. Even if true, Voth said, we cannot operate. Sedation is impossible. Physical restraints cannot hold a Vorthrax. The surgery would be fatal. Not surgery, Taeyang said, his mind racing through possibilities. Removal. Small incision. Extract the fragment, seal the wound. But I need the creature calm. Calm? Rinmok's laugh was bitter. That creature will kill anything that enters its chamber. Calm is impossible. Not impossible, difficult. Taeyang turned from the viewport. I need scent markers from its home world. Environmental controls that mimic Krath Prime. And time. Time is the one thing we do not have, Voth said. Then give me what you can. Taeyang met the director's gaze through the comm screen. 30 minutes ago you were going to kill it. Now we know what's wrong. Let me try to fix it. The command room erupted in argument. Voices overlapped, some supporting him, most against. Taeyang stood in the corridor, watching Sovereign destroy itself, trying to escape the pain no one else had noticed. Finally, Voth's voice cut through the chaos. The council will vote. Senior staff only. Taeyang waited, his heart hammering. On the other side of the barrier, Sovereign crashed into the wall again. The containment field dropped to 65%. The vote is complete, Voth said. 3 in favor, 4 against, 2 abstentions. The measure fails. I vote in favor. Yara's voice was steady. That makes 4 to 4. Another long silence. Very well, Voth said, and Taeyang heard something new in the director's voice. Not respect, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of doubt in their own certainty. Human, you have one chance. If you fail, Sovereign dies. If you succeed, we will see. Taeyang looked through the viewport at the massive predator. In 30 minutes, he would enter that chamber. The preparation chamber was small and clinical, designed for scientists to gear up before entering habitats. Taeyang stood in the center while automated systems fitted him with a reinforced environment suit. The material was strong, meant to protect against atmospheric hazards and minor impacts. It wouldn't stop Sovereign if the Vorthrax decided to attack. Suit integrity at 98%, a mechanical voice announced. Environmental controls synchronized. Medical kit loaded. Through the chamber's small window, Taeyang could see the command center. Voth, Rinmok, Yara, and a dozen other staff members watched screens showing Sovereign's vital signs. The creature's temperature continued to climb. The containment field was at 58% and dropping. His comm crackled. Equipment is ready, Yara said. Scent markers from the Krath Prime biological database. Low-frequency sound emitters. Bioluminescent algae samples. We synthesized everything in 18 minutes. Good work? Taeyang checked the medical kit one more time. Laser scalpel, surgical forceps, tissue sealant, broad-spectrum antibiotics adapted for Vorthrax biology. Everything he'd need if this worked. Everything that would be useless if Sovereign killed him in the first 10 seconds. A holographic screen appeared in front of him. A human face, someone he didn't recognize. Woman, maybe 40, with tired eyes and a medical insignia on her collar. I'm Bora Lee, she said. Human Medical Corps attached to the military liaison ship in this sector. I'll guide you through anything unexpected with Vorthrax physiology. Didn't know we had military here, Taeyang said. We don't, officially. But when word spread that a human was about to walk into a cage with a Vorthrax, your sister made some calls. I'm here on consultation. Bora's expression softened slightly. She's watching, by the way. Hana, she wanted you to know. Something tight in Taeyang's chest loosened just a little. He wasn't completely alone in this. 5 minutes, Voth's voice cut in. Are you prepared? Taeyang looked at his reflection in the chamber's polished wall. Simple field clothes under the environment suit. No fancy uniform, no impressive credentials. Just a vet from Earth who'd spent 10 years convincing dangerous animals not to kill him. Ready, he said. The inner door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Sovereign's habitat was massive, designed to mimic the high-gravity forests of Krath Prime. Artificial trees rose toward a domed ceiling that projected an alien sky. The ground was covered in thick vegetation that crunched under Taeyang's boots. The air was hot and humid, heavy with the scent of something sharp and metallic. And in the center of the clearing, Sovereign waited. The Vorthrax was even more terrifying up close. 12 feet of pure predator, every line of its body designed for killing. Its 6 limbs ended in claws that had carved through reinforced walls. Its hide was armored with overlapping plates, each one edged with venomous spines. The creature's eyes were large and intelligent, tracking Taeyang's every movement. Right now, those eyes glowed bright red, and every spine on the Vorthrax's body stood erect. Sovereign saw him. And Sovereign was ready to kill. Taeyang forced himself to breathe slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. He'd done this before. Different planet, different creature, but the principle was the same. Show fear and you trigger the predator instinct. Show aggression and you invite attack. Show calm confidence and sometimes, you earn respect. He activated the environmental controls. The scent markers released first. Compounds synthesized to match Krath Prime's native vegetation. Then the low-frequency sound emitters kicked in, producing rhythms that Vorthrax used for territorial communication. Finally, the bioluminescent algae began to glow along the walls, creating patterns that would be familiar to a creature from Sovereign's world. The Vorthrax's head tilted. The red glow of its threat display flickered to orange, confusion. That was good. Confusion was better than rage. Taeyang took one slow step forward, then stopped. Sovereign's eyes locked onto him and the creature's muscles tensed. Not yet. Too fast and this would end badly. Heart rate is decreasing, Bora's voice said quietly in his ear. Still elevated, but dropping. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He waited. 1 minute. 2. The scent markers filled the air, and the sound emitters thrummed at frequencies just below human hearing. Sovereign's bioluminescence shifted from orange to yellow. Another step. Stop. Wait. Sovereign made a sound, something between a growl and a rumble that Tae-yang felt in his bones. But the creature didn't charge. It watched him with those intelligent eyes trying to understand what was happening. "I'm not here to hurt you," Tae-yang said quietly. The words didn't matter. Sovereign couldn't understand them. But tone mattered. Calm. Steady. He'd used the same voice with grizzly bears in the Montana wilderness, with tigers at the rehabilitation center, with every dangerous animal that had ever decided whether he lived or died. He'd brought a food offering, meat treated with mild analgesics. Not sedatives, those wouldn't work on a Vorthrax, but pain relief, something to take the edge off the agony Sovereign must be feeling. Tae-yang placed the offering on the ground between them and backed away 3 steps. Sovereign stared at him for a long moment. Then the creature lowered its massive head and sniffed the meat. One of its forelimbs reached out, claws extended, and pulled the offering closer. The Vorthrax ate. Bioluminescence shifting to green. Yara reported through the comm. "That's a calm state. I can't believe this is working." "Don't celebrate yet," Rinmok said. "The hard part hasn't begun." They were right. Tae-yang waited while Sovereign finished eating, while the analgesics worked their way through the creature's system. Then he took another step closer. Sovereign's eyes never left him, but the glow remained green. The creature made that rumbling sound again, softer this time. Recognition, not friendship. Apex predators didn't make friends with prey. But acknowledgement, a willingness to tolerate his presence. Tae-yang spent the next 15 minutes slowly closing the distance. Each step was calculated, each pause timed to let Sovereign adjust. By the time he reached the Vorthrax's left side, sweat was running down his spine despite the suit's temperature controls. This close, he could see the wound. The flesh around the foreign object was swollen and discolored, weeping fluid that stained the creature's hide. Every breath Sovereign took made the area flex, driving the metal fragment against nerves and tissue. "Bora," he said quietly. "I'm in position. Talk me through the anatomy." The holographic display appeared in his helmet, overlaying Sovereign's body with anatomical markers. Bora's voice was calm and professional. "The fragment is lodged between ribs 4 and 5, approximately 8 centimeters deep. It's pressing against the lateral nerve cluster. That's why the pain is so intense. The good news is you can reach it without major surgery. The bad news is one wrong move and you could sever the nerve entirely." "What happens if I sever it?" "Permanent paralysis of the left forelimb. Possibly death if the nerve trauma cascades." "Great." Tae-yang pulled out the laser scalpel. "No pressure then." Sovereign's head swung around, tracking the movement. The creature's eyes fixed on the scalpel, and its bioluminescence flickered yellow. "Easy," Tae-yang murmured. "Easy, I know it hurts." "I'm going to fix it." He activated the scalpel. The beam cut into Sovereign's hide with a smell like burning metal. The Vorthrax rumbled, a sound that shook the air, but didn't move trust. Somehow, impossibly, this apex predator was trusting him. Tae-yang worked quickly but carefully, following Bora's guidance. The incision had to be precise, large enough to extract the fragment, small enough to minimize tissue damage. Blood welled up, darker than human blood, thick and viscous. He ignored it and focused on the deeper tissue. "There," Bora said. "You can see the fragment now. Use the forceps." The metal piece was jagged, covered in infected tissue. Tae-yang gripped it with the surgical forceps and began to pull, slowly, steadily. The fragment was lodged tight, pressed against bone and nerve. Sovereign roared. The sound was deafening, primal. A noise that spoke of death and ancient hunting grounds. The creature's entire body tensed, muscles coiling like springs. "Don't stop," Bora urged. "You're almost there. If you stop now, the trauma will be worse." Tae-yang pulled harder. The fragment shifted, came loose from the tissue, and suddenly slid free. He dropped it, and the forceps grabbed the tissue sealant and applied it to the wound. The sealant foamed, expanding to fill the incision and knitting damaged tissue together. Then he stepped back, breathing hard. Sovereign stood completely still for 3 heartbeats. 4. 5. Then the creature's bioluminescence shifted from yellow to blue, a color Tae-yang hadn't seen yet. The Vorthrax lowered its massive body to the ground with a sound like distant thunder. Its eyes closed. What's blue mean? Taiyang asked, his voice shaking slightly. Contentment, Yara whispered. Blue is contentment. Sovereign feels unsafe. Taiyang injected the antibiotics into Sovereign's shoulder. The creature didn't even flinch. Then he gathered his equipment, backed away slowly, and made his way to the exit, the door sealed behind him, and his legs nearly gave out. Through the viewport, he watched Sovereign rest peacefully for the first time in days. The creature's breathing was steady and even. The wound site was already beginning to heal. The station's medical bay was quiet at 600 hours. Taiyang sat on an examination table while a Thrin medic checked his vital signs. Standard procedure after exposure to an apex predator. They'd told him. Make sure there were no injuries, no contamination, no signs of shock. He felt fine. Tired, but fine. Heart rate is elevated but within acceptable range, the medic said, their aquatic features impassive. No toxin exposure detected. You are cleared for duty. Duty. As if he'd just filed reports instead of performing surgery on a creature that could have killed him with a single swipe. When he returned to his quarters, exhaustion hit him all at once. He collapsed onto his bunk and fell asleep immediately, still wearing his field clothes. He woke 12 hours later to someone pounding on his door. Kim. Open this door right now. Taiyang stumbled upright and hit the access panel. The door slid open to reveal Hana standing in the corridor. Her cargo ship uniform rumpled and her hair a mess. You're here, he said stupidly. Of course I'm here. She pushed past him into the small quarters. You walked into a cage with a Vorthrax. Did you really think I was going to stay on my ship after watching that? Your captain gave me 3 days leave when I explained what happened. Apparently the whole human fleet is talking about you. She grabbed his shoulders, her eyes bright. Taiyang, do you understand what you did? Nobody treats Vorthrax, nobody. They're considered untouchable. And you just walked in and healed one like it was a sick dog. It wasn't that simple. I know it wasn't simple. I watched the whole thing. I saw you stand there while that creature decided whether to kill you. Her voice softened. I'm proud of you. But I'm also angry you scared me like that. They spent the next hour talking, Hana demanding every detail he hadn't been able to share during the procedure. Eventually she had to return to her ship, but not before making him promise to call her daily. I want to hear how they treat you now, she said at the door. Something tells me things are going to be different. She was right. When Taiyang reported for duty the next morning, the records department was empty. He found Yara at the door waiting for him. You're not working here anymore, she said quickly. Director Voth reassigned you. You're needed in the medical wing. The medical wing was on the opposite side of the station, accessible only to senior staff. Taiyang had never been cleared to enter before. Now the security panels accepted his credentials without hesitation. Inside, the wing was a maze of surgical theaters, diagnostic labs, and recovery rooms. The air smelled of antiseptic and something else, something organic that his translator couldn't quite identify. Rinmok was waiting in the main laboratory. The Sorvath scales were their neutral green, impossible to read. Kim, Rinmok said, there is a situation that requires your expertise. Your expertise. Not consultation, not observation. Expertise. Show me, Taiyang said. The patient was a Dralvan, an insectoid creature the size of a horse with crystalline wings and too many legs to count. It was contained in a specialized chamber, thrashing weakly against padded walls. She's been like this for 3 cycles, Rinmok explained. Refusing food, increasingly lethargic, aggressive when approached. We've tried every treatment protocol. Nothing works. Taiyang studied the Dralvan carefully. Its movements were uncoordinated, its wings folded at odd angles. What's her native environment? Desert planet, high UV radiation, low humidity, silicate-based vegetation. And here, we maintain standard atmospheric controls. Moderate temperature, 60% humidity. That's the problem. Taiyang pointed at the creature's wings. Those are solar collectors. She's not eating because she can't metabolize the food without UV exposure. She's starving even with a full stomach. Rinmok's scales flushed yellow. Embarrassment. Of course, we focused on nutrition and overlooked energy absorption. We should have. It's an easy mistake, Taiyang said, especially if you're thinking about carbon-based metabolic processes. But she's silicate-based. Different rules. They adjusted the habitat's lighting, installing UV emitters that mimicked the Dralvan's home star. Within 2 hours, the creature's movements became more coordinated. Within 6 hours, she was eating. Thank you, Rinmok said quietly. I have studied xenobiology for 40 cycles, and I missed something obvious. You studied theory, Taiyang said. I studied behavior. Different tools, same goal. Over the next week, the pattern repeated. Yara would bring him a case the senior staff couldn't solve. Taiyang would observe, identify patterns the others missed, and suggest solutions that seemed obvious once stated, but had eluded trained xenobiologists. A Korath that had stopped vocalizing wasn't sick. It was lonely. Its species lived in groups of 50 or more. They brought in recordings of Korath colony sounds, and within a day the creature was healthy again. A Shriven that had become aggressive wasn't territorial. It was pregnant. They adjusted the habitat to include nesting materials, and the aggression disappeared. Word spread through the station. The human vet who'd saved Sovereign wasn't just lucky. He was good. Even Voth's attitude changed. Not warm, the director was incapable of warmth, but respectful. During staff meetings, Voth asked for Taiyang's opinion. On complicated cases, the director deferred to his judgment. 3 weeks after the incident with Sovereign, Taiyang was in the medical wing when Yara rushed in, her features pale with worry. We have a problem. A big one. She led him to a communications room where Voth, Rinmok, and several other senior staff were gathered around a holographic display. The image showed a massive station easily 10 times the size of Velcor. That's Unity Station, Yara explained. The Galactic Union's Biological Ethics Committee headquarters. They've requested your presence at an emergency council session. Me? Why? Because of this. Voth activated another display. Video footage appeared showing Taiyang entering Sovereign's habitat. The angle was from above, captured by security cameras. The footage showed everything. His slow approach, Sovereign's changing bioluminescence, the surgery itself. This video has been transmitted throughout the Union, Voth said. Every member species has seen it. You are now famous, Taeyang Kim. And the Council wants to know how a human, a species barely in space for one cycle, succeeded where trained xenobiologists failed. I just did my job, Taeyang said. Your job. Rinmok's scales flashed with something that might have been amusement. Your job was filing reports. You ignored your job and saved the most dangerous creature in this facility. Now the entire Union wants to understand how. When do they want me? 3 days. A human ambassador will escort you. Her name is Dal Su Han. Taiyang spent those 3 days in a blur of preparation. Ambassador Han arrived on a sleek diplomatic ship, professional and efficient. She briefed him on council protocols, proper forms of address, political considerations he'd never thought about. Remember, she said as their ship approached Unity Station, you're not just representing yourself anymore. You're representing humanity, how you present yourself, how you speak, how you handle questions. All of it reflects on our species. No pressure, Taiyang thought. Unity Station was magnificent. A massive ring structure that orbited a binary star system. The interior was designed to accommodate hundreds of different species simultaneously, with varying gravity zones, atmospheric compositions, and environmental controls. The council chamber was at the station's heart, a vast spherical room with seating arranged in concentric rings rising toward a domed ceiling. Representatives from dozens of species filled the space. Insectoids, reptilians, aquatics in specialized environment suits, energy beings that existed as pure light, and countless others Taeyang couldn't begin to identify. At the center of the chamber on a raised platform stood High Counselor Vex. The Thalen appeared as a vaguely humanoid form made of shifting blue energy, simultaneously present and not present in physical space. Taeyang Kim. Vex's voice resonated through the chamber, translated into every language simultaneously. You are called before this council to present your findings regarding the treatment of apex predators. The council recognizes you. Taeyang walked to the speaker's platform, every eye in the chamber following him. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. He'd faced down a Vorthrax. He could handle politicians. Members of the council, he began. His voice amplified throughout the chamber. 3 weeks ago, I saved a creature called Sovereign. Not through advanced technology, not through superior knowledge, but through observation and respect. He activated the holographic display, showing footage from Sovereign's habitat. I watched this creature suffer while trained xenobiologists dismissed its pain as aggression. Why? Because they approached the situation with theory instead of observation. They saw data instead of behavior. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, some approving, some skeptical. Humanity evolved on a death world, Taeyang continued. We shared our planet with creatures that could kill us easily. Predators with claws, fangs, venom. We survived not by dominating them, but by understanding them. By learning to read their behavior, predict their actions, and coexist. He showed images from Earth. Humans tracking elephants, studying lions, swimming with sharks. We didn't just survive these creatures. We learned to care for them. We built veterinary science around the principle that every animal, no matter how dangerous. 6 months had passed since Taeyang saved Sovereign, 6 months that had transformed everything. The training facility on Velcor Station had expanded into an entire wing. Where once there had been empty storage bays, now there were classrooms, simulation chambers, and practical training habitats. 15 students sat in the main lecture hall, 8 aliens and 7 humans, all watching Taeyang with varying degrees of attention. Observation is everything, he said, pacing in front of the holographic display. Theory gives you the framework, but behavior gives you the truth. Watch. He activated the display. Footage appeared of a Kelrath, a creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard. It paced its enclosure in repetitive patterns. What do you see? Taeyang asked. A young Sorvath raised a clawed hand. Stereotypic behavior. The creature is bored. That's what the textbook would tell you. Anyone else? A human student named Gitai spoke up. It's favoring its back left leg. The pacing pattern avoids putting full weight on it. Good, what else? Yara, now his teaching assistant, pointed at the screen. The creature keeps looking toward the upper corner of the habitat. Not random, consistently the same spot. Taeyang smiled. Exactly. This Kelrath isn't bored. It has an injured leg and is responding to an ultrasonic frequency coming from a malfunctioning climate control unit. The pacing is the creature trying to escape the sound while minimizing pain from the leg. He paused the footage. One diagnosis treats boredom with enrichment and fails. The other treats pain and removes the irritant. Theory versus observation. Both are necessary, but observation must come first. The class continued for another hour. When it finished, Gite approached Taeyang's desk. Sir, I wanted to ask about the Vorthrax case. In the reports, you mentioned trust. How do you build trust with something that could kill you? Taeyang considered the question. You don't build trust with apex predators the way you do with social animals. It's more like mutual respect. You acknowledge their capability to harm you. You demonstrate that you're not a threat. And you prove through action that you understand their needs. But you walked into Sovereign's habitat knowing it could kill you in seconds. Yes, because I knew the alternative was watching it die in pain. Sometimes courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being more afraid of doing nothing. Gite nodded slowly, processing this. I hope I can be that brave someday. You will be. When it matters. After the student left, Yara approached. You have a message from Ambassador Han. She says it's urgent. Taeyang opened the communication on his personal tablet. Dalsu Han's face appeared, her expression serious. Taeyang, we have a situation. The Krath government has formally requested your presence. It concerns Sovereign. His stomach tightened. Is the creature all right? Sovereign is fine. But the Krath homeworld wants to discuss something sensitive. They're sending a delegation to Velcor Station. They'll arrive in 2 days. The transmission ended without further explanation. Taeyang stared at the blank screen, worry gnawing at him. The Krath were Sovereign's species' homeworld government. If they were involved, this was serious. 2 days later, Taeyang stood in the station's formal reception area beside Director Voth. 5 Krath delegates entered through the airlock, their movements precise and controlled. They were bipedal, vaguely reptilian with scaled skin that shifted between gray and green. The lead delegate approached. I am Council Leader Shal. We have traveled far to meet the human who saved our treasure. Treasure? Taeyang asked. Sovereign is not merely a preserved specimen. The creature is sacred to Krath culture. When we learned that one of the 3 remaining Vorthrax in captivity was injured and nearly killed, it caused significant distress among our people. Shal's eyes fixed on Taeyang. Then we learned a human healed it, using methods our own experts had not considered. I did what any veterinarian would do, Taeyang said. You walked into a Vorthrax habitat unarmed. You performed surgery on a conscious apex predator. You succeeded where trained specialists failed. Shal's tone was unreadable. We have reviewed all available data. We wish to understand how this was possible. They spent the next 3 hours in conference. Taeyang explained his methods, his training, his experiences with Earth's dangerous wildlife. The Krath delegates asked detailed questions, taking extensive notes. Finally, Shao spoke again. The Krath government wishes to make a proposal. We have a conservation facility on our homeworld where 12 Vorthrax live in a protected reserve. We face constant challenges maintaining their health. Traditional Krath medicine is effective for most species, but Vorthrax are difficult to treat safely. You want me to come to Krath Prime, Taeyang said. We want you to establish a training program there. Teach our specialists your methods. Help us better care for the creatures that are sacred to our people. Shao paused. And there is one more thing. We wish to return Sovereign to the homeworld. Taeyang's breath caught. Return it? The creature has suffered too much in captivity. It deserves to live its remaining years in its native environment with its own kind. But the transport will be dangerous. We need someone who understands Sovereign's behavior to oversee the relocation. Taeyang looked at Voth. The director's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. This is your decision, Kim. The Council has granted you authority over apex predator care protocols. I'll do it, Taeyang said. On one condition. My students come with me. This is exactly the kind of experience they need. Shao inclined their head. Agreed. 3 weeks later, Taeyang stood on the bridge of a Krath transport ship, watching Krath Prime grow larger on the view screen. The planet was beautiful. Vast forests under an orange sun, mountain ranges that stretched beyond the horizon, oceans the color of jade. Behind him in the cargo bay, Sovereign rested in a specially designed transport habitat. The Vorthrax had been calm throughout the journey, its bioluminescence a steady blue-green. It somehow seemed to understand that it was going home. Gitai approached, excitement clear on his face. Sir, the sensors are showing massive biosignatures in the forest below. Dozens of them. Wild Vorthrax, Yara said from her station. The reserve must be nearby. The ship descended through the atmosphere and landed on a clearing at the edge of a massive forest. When the cargo bay doors opened, warm air flooded in, carrying scents of alien vegetation and something else, the chemical markers that Vorthrax used for communication. Sovereign stood in its habitat, its entire body rigid with attention. The creature's bioluminescence began pulsing in complex patterns Taeyang had never seen before. It knows. One of the Krath handlers said quietly, It knows its home. They released Sovereign gradually, opening the habitat's doors and allowing the creature to emerge at its own pace. The Vorthrax stepped onto native soil for the first time in 3 years, its clawed feet sinking into the soft earth. For a long moment, Sovereign didn't move. Then it raised its head and roared, not in pain or aggression, but in pure joy. The sound echoed through the forest, and in the distance other roars answered. The Vorthrax began to walk toward the forest. Taeyang followed at a safe distance, his students spreading out in observation formation as he'd taught them. At the tree line, Sovereign stopped and turned. The massive predator looked back at Taeyang, its eyes meeting his one final time. Then it lowered its head in that gesture of respect, held it for 3 heartbeats, and disappeared into the shadows. Goodbye, Taeyang whispered. Over the next 2 months, Taeyang and his students lived at the Krath Conservation Facility. They trained local specialists in observation techniques, established new medical protocols, and helped implement behavioral enrichment programs. The work was challenging but rewarding. During their stay, they received reports of Sovereign. The creature had integrated with a small Vorthrax group and was thriving in the wild environment. One report mentioned that Sovereign's group had grown, unusually tolerant of the research teams monitoring them, something unprecedented in Vorthrax behavior. It's like Sovereign taught them we're not threats, Gite said, reading the report, that we can be trusted. Or taught them that some smaller creatures are worth respecting, Yara suggested. When their work on Krath Prime was complete, Ambassador Han contacted them with news. The Biological Ethics Committee has been impressed with your results. They want to expand the program. 7 more species have requested human advisors for their conservation facilities. 7. Taeyang looked at his students. They'd grown so much in these months, developing skills and confidence he'd only hoped to instill. You can't do it alone, Han said. You'll need to train more instructors. Build a real institution. That night, sitting around a fire at the conservation facility, Taeyang's students discussed the future. Gite wanted to specialize in avian species. Another student, a Kelzari named Thex, was fascinated by aquatic creatures. Yara planned to focus on insectoid xenobiology. "We're going to change how the entire union approaches animal care," Thex said, their enthusiasm infectious. "Not just humans. All of us together." Taeyang looked around the circle at faces from half a dozen worlds, all united by a common purpose. He thought about how far they'd come. How far he'd come. 6 months ago, he'd been filing reports and cleaning cages, dismissed as an ignorant newcomer.